Everybody, and welcome to those in the gallery, staff, councillors and those watching at home. Welcome to tonight's agenda forum on the 4th of March 2026, and I declare this meeting open at 6 p.m. Just like to begin with our warm welcome, which is the City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, their descendants. The terms and conditions of entry into this meeting are posted at the entry of the public gallery just as you come in, and members of the public are advised to read them prior to attending this meeting, and please abide by them. Tonight's attendance and apologies. We have council members present. We have Councillor Catalano absent. We have Councillor Prodovnik as an apology, Councillor Takiro as an apology, and Councillor McCulloch is also an apology. Now, we move to part 4, disclosure of financial proximity interests and interest affecting impartiality. At this stage, I have nil, but if anyone has one, could they please fill out their form and hand that up to the CEO. Tonight, we have no petitions, so we move to part 6. This is the reports and notices of motion. 6.1 is the additional information from officers, and we had nil tonight. And we move to 6.2, which is deputations. So in accordance with the current procedures for public participation at agenda forums, all requests for in-person deputations were required by 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 3rd of March 2026. And there were no written deputations received by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, the 3rd of March 2026. 14.1.3, the annual meeting of electors 2026, consideration of motions, which is found on page 84. We have in-person deputations not in support of the officer's recommendation. And the first in-person deputation is Mr. Mark Richards from the Bellevue Residents and Ratepayers Association on motion number 17. So if you'd like to come up to the podium, and you have 3 minutes. I don't think he's here. Mark, not here tonight? No? Okay. We'll move to number 2. That's Mr. Humphrey Boga on motion 11. Thank you.
Motion 11 at the annual electors meeting reads that a detailed review be undertaken by an independent agency to the city's planning department. This deputation disagrees with the city officer's recommended action. As president of the Swan Valley Ratepayers and Residents Association, I present this deputation also on behalf of the named community groups listed in this deputation. We reject the city officer's response to this motion and appeal to each City of Swan councillor to support the motion, number 11, as presented at the 2026 annual electors meeting. The City of Swan community groups and residents hold a common deep concern with the planning staff's interpretation and response on planning issues. We collectively request that a detailed review to be undertaken by independent agency into the city's planning department, and that the terms of reference are made public before the review is conducted. Due to time constraints, examples of planning issues raised by each group cannot be read out. For information, this will be sent to the council for inclusion into the minutes. So now we get a list of things. The Swan Communities Alliance, Environmental Alliance. And now we have the Bullsbrook Residents and Ratepayers Association. Bullsbrook Landcare. The Vines Residents and Ratepayers Association. Henley Brook Resident. West Swan Resident. Alan Brockman Integrated Catchment Group. North Swan Land Conservation District Committee, Woodbridge Ratepayers Association, Swan Valley Farmers, the Swan Valley Ratepayers and Residents Association, Upper Swan Districts Ratepayers and Residents Association, Friends of the Western Swamp Tortoise, Swan Valley Tourism Alliance, Swan Valley Community Group, the Trillion Trees through a local resident, Brabham Residents Group. In closing, this requested planning review is a certain way to address common community conviction that many planning decisions have been made without adequate application of the WA state planning framework. We believe that a comprehensive independent review is in everyone's best interest.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone that's attended to tonight. Any questions before you go? Just wait one moment, Mr. Bogart. Okay, Councillor Bowman.
Thanks for that, Humphrey. Humphrey, you said you hadn't had enough time to read out all the concerns of the different ratepayers and other groups, associations. Can you mention the concerns from your ratepayers association, please?
Well, I know, for example, let's say at Clementine and Upper Swan, it seems that only the executive summary or the summary of the whole proposal was read, because there's a section in there I know about waterlogging, and I made a submission on that, and I know that there was no comment on it, was sort of ignored. We have also had concerns about Midland Oval, how that was handled from the ratepayers' point. Even so, it's not in the Swan Valley. It impacts, because anything that happens in the city of Swan impacts other areas of the city of Swan due to rates. Then the handling with the urban development on the western side of the water issues have taken months and months. I mean, the whole year, last year, we have talked about water issues at council meetings, and it was only in November that they realised, hang on, there is an issue somewhere. So, you know, it's part of planning, and some planning, it might be prior to that, might be engineering, I don't know, it's the whole planning, many issues. And then there seems to be a lack of decisive interest in the environment.
And Humphrey, I think I know the answer to this with everyone standing up, but the officer's comments seems to focus on the vines.
Yes.
Is your understanding of that motion, was it restricted to the vines, or was it...
No, it was not restricted to the vines. They just used it as an example, because that's what I'm most familiar with at the time. If they have been at a time, if there had been a bigger alliance, let's say, from all sort of working groups, he might have had a different motion, and he might have had examples out of the vines. But because of the vines, there's so much detail available, that was the best.
And would I be correct in assuming that you support the motion or the concerns that are raised by the Vines people, and everyone that stood up is the same, hence the reason why they all stood up in support?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Bogart? Oh, Councillor Howlett.
Thank you for your questions, and to the other members that have, from residents and ratepayer groups and community groups, organisations that have attended tonight to show their support for Mr. Bogart. Couple of questions. One is, would you like to see this motion withdrawn and put forward as a motion to be dealt with by council?
Yeah, I think that's the best way forward.
And would you like residents and ratepayers to form part of the terms of reference for such a detailed review to be undertaken?
I think that's probably, it would be useful, as long as this is published. That's the main thing, because otherwise the terms of reference become a black box, and we never know what's in it and out it. And then and that's not related to the city of Swan, that is everywhere. So yeah, well, we could be part of it, or maybe delegation of all our groups here tonight.
Okay. Councillors, does anyone else have a question for Mr. Bogart? No. Thank you very much tonight for your deputation. For everyone that came in again, it's very much appreciated. Mr. Mark Richards from Bellevue Residents and Ratepayers Association for motion 17, and you have 3 minutes.
Sorry, I missed being called up before. Madam Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery, my name is Mark Richards, speaking in support of motion 17, carried 38-0 at the electors' meeting. Bellevue is the only suburb in the Midland Guildford ward without a single irrigated park. Station Park and Todd Park sit at the centre of our community, yet both remain dry, sandy and unusable. The infrastructure exists, the reticulation exists, the bore exists, but the water does not. Todd Park's bore is diverted to Coongamire, leaving Bellevue with any irrigated open space at all. The officer comments states that groundwater allocation is limited and cannot be transferred between aquifers. That is correct, but irrelevant. Bellevue, Midland, Guildford, Woodbridge, Vivash, Middle Swan and Midvale all draw from the same aquifer. The issue is not the aquifer transfer, the issue is the internal distribution. Reallocation within a licence is lawful, stage irrigation is lawful, establishment watering for rewilding is lawful, supplementation with scheme water is lawful and already used by the city at the Bellevue Mechanics Hall. A completed rewilding concept for Todd Park was created and given only to ward councillors, never released publicly, never tested with residents and never progressed, leaving Bellevue with a documented plan on the shelf and no record of any community engagement at all. The existence of a finished supported design that has never been acted on reinforces the core issue. Bellevue has plans, Bellevue has infrastructure, and Bellevue does not receive any implementation. The Local Government Act requires council to consider electors' motions and record its reasons. A recommendation to note that the information and to basically note the information and take no further action does not address the substance of the motion, does not address the existing infrastructure and does not address the documented inequity across the ward. The Act preserves your discretion. You are not bound to accept the officer recommendation. The city's own public open spaces strategy requires equitable access to irrigated neighbourhood parks. Bellevue is the only suburb in the ward that does not meet the standard. When Bellevue Oval was sold, residents were told that a portion of the proceeds would be reinvested into Bellevue's public open spaces. That reinvestment never occurred. Today, the same pattern continues. Bellevue loses assets, Bellevue is promised reinvestment, and Bellevue receives none of the practical outcomes that other suburbs take for granted. This motion does not ask for immediate construction. It asks for equitable access, transparent prioritisation, and a correction to a long documented deficit. It asks Council to direct the CEO to bring back options, groundwater relocation, partial irrigation, rewilding with establishment water or scheme water, supplementation. They're all lawful, they're all feasible, they're all within your authority. Bellevue has waited long enough, the community has spoken clear, the infrastructure exists, the need exists, the inequality is documented. Council now decides whether it remains. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Richards. Councillors, thank you. I had Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Mark, a question for you. So I guess what you're saying is if we could have a slight, modest reduction in the water allocated to other parks in the Midland Guildford Wood, then a modest amount of that saved water could be used to reticulate the two parks in Bellevue. Okay. And I guess the other question is, I know there was some discussion with the state government about water allocation from this aquifer. Did that come to anything?
It's the same with what's happened over the last 10 years. I haven't heard anything back, so... Like, I'm not giving up on this. I'm going to be a thorn in everyone's foot until we get water, so...
Okay, that's all from me, though I've got questions for staff later on.
Thank you. Councillor Hallett, you had a question?
Thank you for your deputation, and apologies if you did say this and I missed it. How long has Todd Park and the, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the other park.
Station Park
been without water or effectively become dry parks?
Oh, I'd say 20 years now.
One further question. And would you say that for the last 20 years you have been advocating to get water into those parks?
It's well into 15 years, yes.
Councillors, any further questions for Mr Richards? Thank you very much for coming in and giving your deputation tonight. Also, just let, are there any other, no, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just let those in the gallery and those at home watching that we have Councillor Henderson online, which we did see earlier. Can you hear us okay? Thank you. Fantastic. We had our next deputation is Mr Stephen O'Neill from the RSL, WA Ellenbrook sub-branch. He is the president for Motion 21. If you'd like to come up to the podium. Thank you, Mr O'Neill. And you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, and other guests. My thing here is about at the Ellenbrook sub-branch being allocated a piece of territory where we can establish a sub-branch headquarters, and not only with the sub-branch headquarters, we could also be sharing that with the scout group and cadets. What I've got down here is the Ellenbrook sub-branch received their charter on the 17th of January 2001. From this date, the sub-branch has not had a premises where it is able to mount a photograph of the ADF commander. In this case, this is King Charles. A place to display any memorabilia or possibly provide a local museum for our members and the community to provide historical items to help all commemorative the effort of ADF as still does provide to this country, Australia, our home, wealthy and free. The endeavour our leaders, the government, are willing to commit our ADF members who are always willing to assist our nation and support other nations when required. Our veterans, up to 1,000 who are residing in and around our location, have earned the right to be able to have a premises where they are able to meet people of similar experience to assist their recovery from any post-traumatic stress disorder matters that have occurred. This venue, when made available, should be able to provide a local point of contact for all particularly defence veterans to help find answers to any matters of concern that may occur. We will have no concern to assist any veteran or their family and friends, even a member of the general community or groups we can support, who may bring to our attention a matter of concern that requires to be assessed and managed in the most successful outcome so that they can achieve. This may be a matter of providing any person who contacts us the contact details of a specialist or group who may assist. Being provided the approval and allocation of an area of space in the City of Swan for the installation, including area modification of the proposed memorial, is just one step in the direction of continuing to provide what we have been told is the third largest dawn service in the Perth metropolitan area. For our initial plans to have any access to a facility to house our group, RSLWA Ellenbrook sub-branch, is required. The Ellenbrook president has spoken with the City of Swan Mayor Tanya Richardson on a matter of when discussing the construction of the Ellenbrook Community Defence Memorial Monument at the Eidos Amphitheatre. The matter was spoken about a building, but be constructed to the north of where the monument is being constructed. Behind this would be allowed a storage of equipment and we require for the conduct of our dawn service. This was advised to us that this would be, it would take approximately 5 years for this to be even considered as being done. So that was a bit of a difficult one. So, yep, okay. I'm lost.
I'll just ask, have you got much more there, Mr O'Neill?
Yeah, no, just one more thing I want to mention is we're aware of the City of Swan's policy of shared use of any facility that is approved for construction. We are aware of the 500 Army Cadet Unit Ellenbrook are at this time posted to the Averley Secondary College, and the space they are permitted to store and use is being reduced as needs of the college increase. Also, the Ellenbrook Scouts have never had a place they could call home in the area either. So they would be welcome to share the facility with us as well. So, yep.
Well, thank you very much for your deputation. I'll ask councillors. Councillor Bowman, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Stephen, thank you for that. Stephen, we both had a chat because between the two of us, we couldn't work out what your motion was at the meeting, and after listening to it 3 times. Can I just confirm, or are you able to repeat the conversation that you had with me about access to land?
That's the major point, is that we understand that the construction of a facility is a cost thing, and we would be willing to be able to seek donations and support to arrive at a conclusion with that. But for us to be able to do that, we need a piece of territory for us to put that on. So that's what our main aim is, to be allocated a space where we can actually do this thing. And it's not just for the Ellenbrook RSL. I've had a pretty in-depth discussion with the local Lions team, and they're very keen to have a facility where they can meet and greet people, to train them in getting on with their lives as well. So
Stephen, obviously, best case scenario, magically we build a new building. But the second best thing is if the city identified land that could be put aside for a building, then the RSL would look at seeking funds to build that building. Is that?
That's my intention of doing it. I mean, we may actually require or need or ask for some support from the City of Swan, but our endeavour is to seek support and donations from local businesses, building providers, etc., etc. Obviously, I understand that the construction of any building within the city has to be done and controlled by the City of Swan, so that's a part of that as well. So yeah.
And any vacant parcel of land that you've looked at and thought that would be the perfect spot? Because I'm pretty sure you and me come up with the same area.
I've got a photograph here, but I'm not sure you'll be able to see it. There's an area of land that's been whatever you want to call it. It's behind, it's behind where the bowling club is, and it's in where the new community centre's been constructed, and it can. I roughly measured it, and could be up to 30 metres in square. So, and there's other ways around, maybe building a larger first floor or something on it. I don't know. So, yeah.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, councillors. Does anyone else have a question? Councillor Congerton.
Thank you, Stephen. Would you mind sharing with me the numbers you have at the RSL currently?
We currently have 97 members on our books.
And can you tell me what it was the previous year?
Well, the previous year I can't really sort of say because it changed. It doesn't change much, but it would have been around the 95 to 97. So, and unfortunately, you have, because as we get older, there's some of our members no longer with us. But yeah,
I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Ringo.
Through Madam Mayor. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your deputation. I just have just one question only. I noticed in the report that it says that the Ellenbrook RSL has been in Charlotte's Vineyard Community Centre since 2023. Could you, for those who maybe perhaps haven't had a chat with you, do you want to walk us through what are some of the challenges that the Ellenbrook RSL is currently facing in their current venue?
As I said in the first part of my deputation, is the fact that we have no capability of mounting a figure of our Commander-in-Chief on the wall, who is the king at the moment. So we have no ability to do that. We could probably stick one on the wall, but you're not allowed to stick things on walls, are you? So, yeah. Also, quite often, we've been in, one incident, we were in a meeting, and we had a ranger turn up and said we had to get out. And we're on our booked Sunday for our meeting, halfway through our meeting and the ranger turned up and said, "You have to get out." I said, "Hang on, we've got it booked." He said, "No, you don't." So there's a bit of mayhem and mischief going on somewhere. I understand that what occurred earlier this year with us was the fact that we didn't understand it. We paid the bill, but we've also got to make a booking. So now that we've done that, we've got our booking in place. It shouldn't happen again, but I think last 18 months it's happened to us 4 times where our bookings have been overrun by other community groups.
Any further questions? Okay, Councillor, is there any?
Now I've got a question for you.
Councillor
if I may.
Johnson.
Yeah, may I move that we, assuming all the questions for this gentleman are completed, move that we suspend 4.57 of our local law to allow a 4th deputation, not in support of the officer's recommendation.
Who was that on?
Oh, it's Mr. Gavin Troy, I believe, has got deputation. Is that right, Mr. Troy? Procedural motion. Well, it's a suspension of local law.
So you've got 557, which is this one here. You've heard 3 against. So I'm presuming Mr. Troy wants to speak against it. It's only 1. You could deal with it at 4.56. So you just want to check that there's only 1.
Okay, I'll just check. There's only 1 that's against. Is that right, Mr. Troy? There's only 1 person wishing to speak against?
We need to finish with Mr. McNeil.
All right, so are there any other questions for Mr. O'Neill? No? Okay, thank you very much for that deputation. So Councillor Johnson has just asked if we can suspend standing orders. So under 4.57, at an agenda forum or ordinary meeting, the presiding member will accept no more than 3 deputations for and 3 deputations against any one item on the agenda, so we can allow Mr. Troy to speak, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. This deputation disagrees with the officer's report. As I've stated many times, the planning problems you have as councillors are not isolated to the Vines, as my motion revealed, and as a majority of you and others are aware. It is a continuing problem, and the question is, how can it be fixed? Well, the solution starts in your court with an investigation within the areas of planning your council can control and change. Your CEO will probably suggest not to question the state government as a council on any matter. He suggests it may cost you state contributions next year. I ask, if you do not get decisions right today, at this time, how much is it likely to cost you long term? A heavy cost normally, I would suggest. A valid, well-considered opinion and argument, sometimes opposing initial but limited thinking, would earn you more credit and respect than avoidance within the governments I have experienced. I do not accept that things have changed to any great extent. Your CEO is wrong in this tactical regard. Your city's strength in representation to government lies with the ability of your representatives, the respect to which they are held, and the balanced and well-considered arguments they advance. Hence the need for an independent inquiry to be followed by gaining the support of WALGA. There are things wrong with the planning approach in your council, and they must be addressed. It cannot be ignored. The staff recommendation in this report is not the solution of the city's in-house planning problems. It is simply a cop-out by your staff failing to recognise or admit their failings to assess across the full spectrum of broad-based planning criteria as required under the state's planning framework. The attachment number 2 has little purpose for the broader intent of my motion. The staff interpretation of any state agency's reaction to a detailed full assessment should not be their objective. It is not the role of council staff to make such assumptions. Council staff must undertake their role as the planning framework requires. Full consideration of the planning manual contents, the planning policies, the planning regulations and the planning guidelines that form the planning framework within the context of the local community interests represented through that elected body. Therefore, the start to achieve a solution to the planning process very much exists in how your planning department and executive staff responds. That is the part you can directly influence. They are responsible to you, not to the state planning agencies. The solution to your planning problems will not be achieved by the process of an internal review. The responses to date from your staff, both planning and executive, illustrate the futility of such a review path. I have suggested in my earlier letter to councillors that an external review is essential, and furthermore, that a committee of councillors with planning experience should undertake the following: the preparation of terms of reference for the review and the selection of the contracted independent party to undertake the review, and if necessary, use a state-based independent organisation to assist only with the initial work involved with the foregoing two functions.
Thank you, Mr. Troy. Do you have much more there?
I have one final sentence. Thank you. I'm not alone with these thoughts, as you well know. I therefore recommend a detailed review of the city's planning department be undertaken by an experienced independent professional party. Madam Mayor and councillors, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for that deputation. I'll get you to just stay there for just one moment and I'll ask councillors, are there any questions for Mr. Troy? No. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Troy, thanks for your deputation. Now, what sort of professional do you think should undertake this review?
Well, there's certainly got to be someone involved with town planning, and there's many of them on the East Coast. And the interesting part about their ability to make a contribution is other states' legislation is marginally different to the West Australian. They may bring forward some excellent ideas if it's done by an independent body from the East.
Any further questions for Mr. Troy? Thank you very much for your deputation tonight. Now we move to in-person deputations in support of the officer's recommendation, and we have Mr. Greg Hull from Woodbridge Ratepayers Association on motion 5 and motion 6. Thank you, Mr. Hull, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, staff. Councillors and staff will recall that the WRA motion proposed the city convene an annual consultative forum, it could be more frequently, with key office bearers of resident and ratepayer groups. Thank you to city staff for their conditional support of this motion. This deputation aims to reinforce for councillors the potential of a forum. The purpose of the forum is straightforward. It will provide an opportunity for representative community groups to become familiar with one another's aims and priorities, share governance experience, and better understand how to engage effectively with city staff. Importantly, the forum is not intended to replace existing engagement processes. Rather, it should strengthen them, improving coordination between groups, reducing duplication in approaches to the city, and encouraging collaboration on matters of citywide consequence. Such a forum could assist staff by providing greater visibility of policy initiatives, enabling explanation of strategic objectives, and serving as an informed community sounding board. It would, of course, rely on participating representatives consulting their own memberships before and after each gathering. I'd like to emphasise that the WRA does not seek ownership of this initiative, The forum belongs to all community ratepayer groups. Recent experience shows that citywide initiatives can be experienced very differently across local areas. A structured forum would help surface those differences early, identify unintended impacts, and better inform long-term planning. As practical first steps, we suggest, first, that the city collate and publish the defining purpose and contact details of groups wishing to participate. A number of local governments already provide this information publicly, and it would assist transparency and connectivity. Second, that participating groups be encouraged to establish contact with one another ahead of the forum. As an example, that happened this evening with the Planning and SEEA. Third, prior to the inaugural meeting, city representatives and a small nominated cross-ward group of community representatives could identify a manageable list of discussion topics. While that task may not be simple, it is achievable. The key principle should be that discussion focuses on citywide issues affecting all ratepayers. By way of example only, such topics might include FOGO implementation, verge management, rising groundwater, tree policy, illegal dumping, rate reviews, recycling, or pet management. For each topic, the aim would be to clearly define the issue, identify who is affected, outline existing policy and procedures, assess effectiveness, and consider constructive pathways forward, including wider consultation where appropriate. In terms of councillor involvement, options could include ward-level discussions feeding into the forum or a combined city-community report back to council following each edition. Finally, the timing and frequency of the forum should align with existing governance and planning cycles, including the annual electors meeting, and be coordinated by city staff. This proposal is practical, collaborative, and designed to add value, both for the city and for the community it serves. Now, may I add that it was unfortunate that motion 6, proposing a workshop to better explain planning and development to the community, received the response that the state's planning system has too many complexities to be explained in a workshop. That said, the WRA will take up the city's invitation to engage more on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Hull. Questions, councillors? Does anyone have any questions for Mr Hull tonight? No? Thank you very much for coming in and giving your deputation. We move to 14.1.5. This is the proposed City Depot Master Plan on page 259, and we have in-person deputations not in support of the officer's recommendation. And I'll ask Ms Amanda Birkin if she'd like to come forward. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Birkin, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Amanda Birkin, resident and ratepayer at 60A Railway Avenue, Middle Swan. I'm here to express serious concerns about the master plan process for the operations centre. Community engagement has been inadequate. Residents were given less than 1 business day to review the plan and submit deputation requests, despite planners having years to prepare. This lack of transparency for a centre that 100% of residents rely on stands in stark contrast to previous consultations for facilities like Swan Active, Midvale and Ellenbrook, which saw much broader engagement despite not being used by all residents. While I recognise the current operations centre is outdated and inadequate, I question the logic of continuing operations at the current site. By 2051, 2/3 of our projected 300,000 residents will live in the Northern Corridor, yet the centre remains in the south. There's no evidence alternate, more central locations have been seriously considered, such as targeted purchase of a suitable landholding. The proposed master plan's parking is already insufficient for the ever-growing fleet vehicles before construction has even started. The CEO indicated at the December 25 forum that the lifespan is only 10 to 15 years, yet the master plan suggests City's expectation is that buildings have a lifespan of at least 50 years. Why invest $55 million in a site that may only serve us for a decade? Is this good planning and stewardship of ratepayers' money? Additionally, the site is zoned residential redevelopment, a vision previously set by council. This master plan undermines that vision, especially as nearby Midland Brick is transitioning to residential use. Maintaining the depot here is inconsistent with council's long-term goals. There are also inaccuracies and missing information in the master plan. For example, landscaping stages are inconsistent about the intersection of Lloyd and Bishop. Some show a roundabout and others display this as a T-junction. There's an absence of traffic and water management assessments for the new access road. The design review panel does not support the master plan, and there's no independent planner report. In conclusion, I respectfully request council to consider whether this site is even suitable given the projected urban growth, ensure the facility's location will meet the community's long-term needs and isn't already outgrown, review the accuracy and sufficiency of the $55 million budget, especially in light of recent cost overruns in other cities' projects, and the fact that over the last 7 years, $6 million has been spent on the operations centre building, see page 283 alone. Yet the budget for a complete demolition and rebuild of the site sits at only $55 million. I also ask that you pause current process to allow for genuine community engagement, comprehensive independent review, and genuine consideration of the purchase of targeted landholding. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking for your deputation. Councillors, are there any questions? Just hold on just one moment, I'll just check. Did anyone have any questions so far? Okay, thank you very much. And our next in-person deputation, not in support of the opposition recommendation, is Mr. Alan Riley. Thank you, Mr. Riley, and you too have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, staff. My name is Alan Riley. As I said, I am a resident and ratepayer at 60 Railway Avenue, Middle Swan, and together with Amanda, we basically abut the depot. And I'm here to strongly oppose the proposed city master plan, because we only learned of this master plan because of previous involvement with the public consultation regarding a proposed new workshop building. At that time, there was no mention of a master plan. However, on page 264 of tonight's agenda, we see that the proposed new workshop building, which is herein called a fabrication workshop, was guided by the master plan and is critical to achieving the overall vision. Page 269 states internal consultation with impacted business units occurred during the master plan planning phase. But in light of this, why wasn't there any public consultation regarding the master plan? This whole process really must be deferred, as Amanda said, until the wider City of Swan community has been consulted on such a monumental issue. At the agenda meeting held on Wednesday, 3rd December 2025, when there was discussion in relation to relocating the depot and the workshop, it was stated the reason the city was against relocating the depot is that it would cost $100 million and couldn't justify ratepayer funds to that extent. However, there was no mention of the $55 million master plan budget. So in light of this revelation, it would seem that the $100 million relocation option should be seriously considered, especially considering the revenue that would be raised by the sale of the existing depot land. On page 421, there is a schematic drawing labelled 13.9 Main Roads Proposal. However, on speaking to Main Roads this morning, they say this is somewhat misleading since the roads south of Roe Highway are controlled by the City of Swan. Now, the City of Swan have confirmed that indeed Bishop Road and that part of Great Northern Highway and Lloyd Street are indeed controlled by the City of Swan. But furthermore, Main Roads say that the funds required for the major interchanges that are depicted have not been allocated. They've certainly been deferred, and these roadworks are many years off. And the mention of 10 years, although not to be stated as fact, was probably more the case. Therefore, the roundabout proposed at Bishop Road and Lloyd Street and the proposed traffic lights in replacement of the roundabout at Great Northern Highway and Bishop Road are purely initiatives of the City of Swan. Main Roads say their only involvement would be if the City of Swan invited their opinion on these matters, more to do with their expertise and the fact that they build most or more roads than anyone in the state. So this once again highlights the need for extensive public consultation, and it would appear to me that the City of Swan is really trying to make the most of a bad situation instead of making some serious long-term decisions that would be far more practical and beneficial to the City of Swan community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that deputation, Mr. Riley. I'll ask councillors, are there any questions? If not, thank you very much for coming in tonight. Okay, so we move to 14.3.1, which is the proposed new workshop building extension to non-conforming use, City Depot Lot 5, number 212, Great Northern Highway, Middle Swan, DA 765-25 on page 429. And we have in-person deputations not in support of the officer's recommendation. Ms. Amanda Birkin. Thank you, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm the resident closest to the proposed workshop. I wish to highlight several concerns about the project's process, transparency and potential impact on residents. Firstly, the Operations Centre Master Depot Master Plan does not yet have development approval for the broader redevelopment. I question why council is considering a $3.5 million workshop a non-conforming use before such approval is granted, potentially undermining previous zoning decisions and a revision to local reserve. Updated attachments show a new roundabout at the Lloyd Bishop intersection and a new depot access road across the vacant lot. These were not in the original documents and have only been shared with the 3 most affected residents. This lack of wider community notification undermines transparency and denies the broader public of a fair opportunity to comment. The new access road will significantly increase truck and light vehicle movements, worsening the noise amenity impacts at my home. There is no evidence of updated noise assessments for this change. Existing workshop noise concerns remain unresolved, with mitigation measures likely to still needed after construction as per the document notes. Although a sound barrier is proposed along the eastern perimeter, details on type and extent are missing. I assume a colour bond acoustic fence, but this is unclear. Such barriers must also extend along the northern boundary of 60A, and there is no mention of acoustic windows for residents. Visual amenity has been considered for Bishop Road, but not for Railway Avenue residents. The mock-ups from my home's perspective are misleading. The workshop will be taller than most trees, making its presence far more imposing than depicted. Page 460 indicates the scale of the building within a residential setting. There is no information on how the city will address significant elevation differences between the workshop and the vacant lot, which is also significantly waterlogged and inaccessible during cooler months. Substantial backfilling and water management will be required, but has not been factored into the proposal. Alternative workshop locations within the site have been minimally explored, despite design review panel encouraging consideration of other options and orientations. The proposed tree protection and management plan is being selectively applied, with tree retention mentioned as subject to Main Roads approval. Retaining existing trees is essential, especially as Carnaby's cockatoos forage in those slated for removal, something I have video evidence of and raised in December 25, with no sign of consultation with Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions. No traffic impact assessment has been done, despite the plan indicating altered traffic flows. Omitting this may be misleading to councillors. There's also a risk of drivers mistakenly entering the depot from the roundabout, creating safety hazards to the public and city staff as they attempt to turn around. Finally, what went out for public comment is vastly different to what is now presented, particularly regarding the new roundabout and road access with reference to the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation. Councillors, do you have any questions for Ms Birkin? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Amanda, first, can you describe the existing noise from the workshop area?
From the workshop, the workshop is right on the other side of the site, so we don't really get to hear much noise at all.
Okay,
It's only minimally when, like I've said before in the forum, there's some vehicles parked along the back fence. They don't really use them very much, so we don't have a lot of interruption to our day unless they start one of those vehicles or move the horse float that's there. And like I said, they're typically vehicles that aren't being used. The workshop will be right outside my front door.
So your concern is that the new workshop is a lot nearer?
It is much closer, far much closer. If you have a look at the aerials, you'll be able to observe just how close it is, and that will be going on all day.
Okay, and can you describe what you think the impact on your family would be?
Disrupted sleep for children who are younger. For me, I work from home for a federal government agency, so that's going to interrupt my work on a daily basis. I work during business hours, Monday to Friday, so that's going to interrupt my work with all the noise that will happen. And now that there's a road, I don't actually know how I'm going to work from home, and it will impact my income as a result. I'll have to go back into the office in the city.
And you mentioned acoustic windows. Can you tell us more about that?
My understanding that is things like acoustic windows may help with some of that noise reduction. I don't know what options are out there, I'm sorry, about specifics, but some information that I've Googled indicates that perhaps acoustic windows and acoustic fencing has been beneficial in helping residents manage noise. Acoustic windows particularly has been mentioned for something in residents where they have overhead planes in their pathway. I don't know what other products and options might be available for residents impacted.
Okay, thanks. And as I asked you last time, are you concerned about the city assessing its own application?
Yes, it seems bizarre to me that that's a process that the city can assess and approve their own application. As I said, I'm not a planner. I don't know if that's something that's widely acceptable throughout Western Australia and other states, but it does seem bizarre that you can be the decision maker, reviewer and acceptor and approver of everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you for your deputation. From what I understand, your deputations tonight is that the master plan has not gone out for public consultation. You've received no consultation on the proposed master plan.
So the first time I knew about the master plan was an email from Phil the other week saying that there's going to be a master plan and the workshop coming up in the next agenda forum on Thursday of last week. Phil came to my home and met with myself, my partner Dawn and Alan, and there were a few pages shown to us. I guess the detail couldn't be shown because it was still confidential at that point in time. So we saw a handful of little pictorials which gave us a little hint about the fact that there was a road realignment and a new access road proposed through the vacant block there. But obviously we didn't get access to the full documentation until it was released publicly on Friday. Monday was a public holiday, and yes, you kind of just have a few hours on Tuesday to decide whether or not you wanted to do a deputation, and that's the only public consultation I'm aware of.
Okay.
And as a resident of the City of Swan, ratepayer, and I suppose also an affected potential resident, do you think that that is a fair and transparent way of managing this process?
No, I don't. 100% of ratepayers will benefit from an operations centre, and I think that it at least needed to go out publicly. However, the city normally communicates with all of their ratepayers, whether that be email, Facebook, or other social media, whatever communication tools are used. I really do think that ratepayers should have been made aware more broadly of what happens, considering everyone's going to be affected. It's not just us three residents as such that's being affected.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for coming in tonight, also for your deputation. Now we also have Mr. Alan Riley, interperson deputation, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr Riley, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, and thank you again. As stated, I'm strongly opposed to this proposed new workshop. And as I previously mentioned, page 264 states that this workshop is critical to achieving the overall vision of the master plan. So clearly any voting on the proposed workshop must be deferred until the master plan has been further scrutinised. But that aside, what I really want to point out is why the proposed workshop should be rejected in its own right. I don't think people appreciate the sheer magnitude of this building. I wish to bring your attention to what I believe are some seriously misleading sketches in this agenda document, and I really do urge you to have a look at them if you can't look at them now, but afterwards on reviewing them. On page 460, the bottommost sketch is probably closer to the realism. To the leftmost of this sketch, you will just see the two houses at 60 and 60A Railway Avenue, which is ours and Amanda's. And you'll see where these properties are actually dwarfed by the workshop. However, on the very next page, 461, the bottommost sketch clearly distorts the ratio of height. As we know, the workshop is proposed to be built along the northern fence, displacing the 14 mature river she oak trees along that border. The workshop would be 4 times the height of that fence. It's a 10-metre high workshop, and not twice as high as is illustrated. So this discrepancy is further confirmed on page 462, where the workshop, as shown, is not even close to the northern boundary and the she oak trees it's displacing. So on closer inspection, the workshop, as shown, only approximates a shed of 6 metres high by 12 metres wide, and not the 10 metres high and 20 metres wide of the workshop. And I think that's a very disappointing distortion. If you would expand that shed out to the she oak trees and raise the height accordingly, you would get a real indication of how powerful a visual intrusion this is, especially in the driveway and the front door area of Amanda's house at 60A. Furthermore, as denoted on page 432, to say that the extent of such views would be limited by an existing 2.4 metre high boundary fence is again seriously distorting. Bearing in mind that Amanda's driveway is raised almost a metre above the depot's hardstand, the view from that driveway would still leave at least the top 60% or approximately 6 metres of the workshop visible, and that's hardly a limited view. And if I could just draw your attention to how monstrous this building is. This current building that we're now sitting in, we're on the first floor. If we approach the ceiling of this, you're getting closer up towards that 10-metre height. And if you were looking from the other side, centre point entrance there, this is 35 metres long. This shed is proposed 45 metres long by 10 metres high. That'll give you some idea of what's sitting virtually outside Amanda's window and front door, and what we see from our decking where we have our coffee. So that's a pretty good indication. A lot of distortion in that document. And when questioned why the workshop could not be relocated in a less intrusive position if the master plan must go ahead, we were told that logistics of accommodating parking areas and other proposed building replacements left no room for an alternative. So to me, this further emphasised why the capacity of the depot is compromised, and the location and the monstrosity of the workshop has been seriously downplayed. I urge that this item be rejected or at least deferred. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Riley. Councillors, do you have any questions for Mr Riley tonight? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you for your deputation. If, as you say, this workshop does have to be built, would you support it relocated to further away at a greater distance?
If the master plan is voted for to stay at the depot, then there's no doubt that the workshop is an integral part of that, and I think the master plan is contingent upon that, and therefore, yes, at that stage, we would then invite the workshop to be moved to a more equitable position for all surrounding residents. Now, if you'll note the size and height of the current buildings, they're nowhere near approaching the height of this workshop. They're more inclined to be around half that height. So For people who are familiar with the depot, you'll understand that this is really a monstrosity. But if it was to be more reasonably located, I mean, you can see the tower that sits in the middle of that. People see that, but it probably doesn't affect them visually each day when they go to work or have a coffee or whatever they may do. So, yeah, that would be an option if the master plan has to go ahead. As you know, I'm strongly opposed to the master plan, but if it had to, that would be the only option to relocate that workshop to a more equitable position, yes.
Okay. Councillors, any further questions? Thank you very much for coming
Thank
into
you.
that deputation. We move to 14.3.2, which is the consideration of submissions. Proposed amendment number 235 to local planning scheme number 17, which is to insert car park as an additional use on lot number 6, number 2, Tanner Street, Middle Swan, LPS 17-235 on page 464. So we have an in-person deputation in support of the officer's recommendation, Mr. Joe Algeri. Thank you.
Good evening.
And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, staff, members of the gallery, Joe Algeri, Director of Altus Planning. We are the applicants who prepared the amendment request, which was initiated by you at the OCM in August of last year. Since that time, following the processes under Section 75 of the Act, it was publicly advertised. There was one submission of support. Numerous local referral agency responses, all in respect to the development form and potential conditions. In reviewing the agenda, the 3 conditions that would be attached with the additional use are not objected to. They are quite reasonable and appropriate, bearing in mind that this is not the end of it. There would still need to be a development application that follows, which is a discretionary rather than a permitted use, and that would follow upon the gazettal of the amendment, should it be approved by the Minister for Planning. On that basis, I've really nothing further to add other than to say we support the recommendation for the amendment to proceed to the West Australian Planning Commission, who will make their final recommendation to the Minister for Planning. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Algeri, for your deputation. Councillors, do you have any questions tonight? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
14.3.3, this is the proposed amendment number 238 to local planning scheme number 17. And that's to reclassify 18 lots in Vivash from general industrial and local road to residential development, and that's on page 474. Tonight we have an in-person deputation in support of the officer's recommendation from Mr. David Paz from Hesperia. Thank you, Mr. Paz, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors and staff, city staff officers. Thank you for this opportunity to address you guys today. My name is David Paz, and I'm the Senior Development Manager for the Rivermark project. We appear today in support of the officer's recommendation to initiate scheme amendment number 238, which rezones the next phase of the Rivermark project from general industrial to urban development, which brings the subject land area zoning in line with the current Metropolitan Regional Scheme zoning of urban. Rivermark has established itself as one of the finest residential estates in the Northern Corridor, and our commitment to tree retention, quality streetscapes, and a well thought out design has created a community that residents are truly proud of to call home. We are also very proud of what we have delivered today, and would warmly invite any councillor who hasn't recently visited the estate to come do so and visit it firsthand. This amendment represents the next chapter of the Rivermark story, and critically, it will open up land directly adjoining to the Swan River, bringing this natural asset back to the public realm. Furthermore, residents and the broader community will have access to the river foreshore as part of a well-considered precinct, which continues the quality and character of Rivermark as it's known for. We acknowledge the inclusions in the proposed scheme amendment conditions relating to both noise, mitigation and contamination. These are not new challenges for the site. They are actually the same issues we have been continually dealing with in previous stages and successfully done so. We have a strong track record on managing these matters effectively, and we have no doubt that these conditions can be satisfied through the normal planning process. We also support the proposed updated scheme amendment area as per the officer's report. This application has been deliberately staged and aligns with the current Metropolitan Regional Scheme urban zoning land in order to expedite the delivery of housing at Rivermark. We also wish to reassure councillors that the Fredon Ecological Community Area, which is located within our land holdings and approximately 200 metres to the east of the current rezone boundary, is outside this current application and therefore will remain untouched and protected. We're excited by the prospect of continuing this significant riverside project and delivering on the vision that has made Rivermark what it is today. We respectfully request Council to initiate the scheme amendment number 238 as recommended by the City's officers report, and we look forward to working with the City closely in delivering the next chapter of Rivermark. We thank you for your time and we welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr Paz, for your deputation. Councillor Howlett.
Good evening, David. Nice to see you, and thank you for your deputation.
Likewise, thank you.
This is an exciting block. It's going to be quite lovely. I'm sure that you'll look after the river treatment beautifully at the front. I've just got a question about the industrial section that's still operating, which I think there's one oven still operating at Midland Brick. Do you know what the lifespan is for that to continue, or when you are looking at that one phasing out?
So there is a kiln building still there just immediately to the east of the proposed boundary, but that has been fully decommissioned and all infrastructure has been stripped out. The prescribed premises, which governs where Midland Brick can operate, has also been reduced to where what we call the clay shed, which is on the far east border of the area and about 300 metres from the current proposed residential development area. So that building is just a shed at the moment. It doesn't actually operate as a kiln. The remaining kilns are located from the Great Northern Highway portion, and there's 2 kilns there, and they'll be there for the medium long term at this point in time.
Thanks. Given that, and also given that on the same agenda we are discussing the master plan for the City Operations Centre to potentially continue operations where it is on Great Northern Highway. How do you see that interface between your development of Hesperia's Rivermark lots and I suppose my question is, would you prefer the depot to remain as an operations centre, or do you think it would be better as real estate?
Councillor Howlett, perhaps you might just refrain from that question. So.
All I can comment on is our Midland Brick operation. It's not it's a tenant in those buildings, and we also recognise the importance of bricks for the state, and we're one of few kilns left in the state that can deliver bricks. So at the moment, there's no intention in the short or medium term to decommission or remove the Midland Brick operation that interfaces the Great Northern Highway portion of the site.
Okay. Councillors, any further questions for Mr Paz? Right. Thank you again as well for coming in tonight and giving that deputation.
Thank you.
We move to 15.2. This is Councillor Bowman review of the permitted trailer size at the Bullsbrook Recycling Centre on page 629. And I have in support of the motion Mr Tim Clark. Is Mr Clark here tonight? If you'd like to come up to the podium, thank you. And you also have three minutes.
Good evening. My name's Tim Clark. I've lived in Bullsbrook for nearly 20 years and have used the recycle centre with my trailer since it started. I support the motion to change the trailer sizes. I was recently turned away because my trailer was too big. I was told anything bigger than an 8x5 or 2.4 by 1.5 metre is too big. My trailer is 8x6 or 2.4 by 1.8. The same size as a standard ute tray. An 8x5 or 2.4 by 1.5 trailer is 6 foot 10 inches or 2 metres 0.5 overall width. making it 10 inches or 250 mil wider than mine overall size. Sorry. The way my trailer is configured, it has the wheels underneath the tray compared to an 8x5 or 2.4 by 1.5, which has wheels on the side of the tray, making it all overall bigger than mine. These measurements came from Midland Trailers. I was told that my trailer was classed as commercial load, but a ute with the exact same size tray is acceptable. I've sent several emails to the City of Swan, but no one answers my questions on this matter. All I get is generic replies. If there has to be a size limit on trailers, it should be overall dimensions. We live in a rural area and not everyone has a standard size trailer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Clark. If you just want to hold on there just for a moment. Councillor Bowman.
Thanks, Tim. Good job. I know you didn't want to publicly speak. Tim, your trailer, how long have you had that trailer for? Roughly.
Pushing 10 years.
And so in that 10 years, you've been going to the recycling centre previously and it was all okay?
Ever since it started, yep.
Okay. And obviously you understand commercial loads aren't allowed at the...
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
So what were you taking there?
Just a bit of recyclable steel, cardboard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And just explain to me again, your trailer's 8x6.
Yep, that's overall dimensions.
Yep, and that's wheels underneath, but an 8x5 with wheels on the side is actually bigger, is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
But that's allowed at the moment?
No.
Okay, so an 8x5 is not
Oh,
allowed?
an 8x5 with the wheels on the side
Yep.
is allowed.
Yep.
And that is 10 inches or 250 mil wider than what I have.
And were you advised, was it because people can't reverse trailers and turning or?
One email they said was that it was too tight up the top for bigger trailers. And I said, well, mine's actually smaller. And they said, it doesn't matter, it doesn't meet the 8x5.
Okay. And what do you think the city should change it to? Should it just be to an 8x6 trailer so it matches the same size as a tray ute? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, well, that rules out a 8x5 then, because that's wider than what an 8x6 is overall.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It should be an overall width, not just a 8x5.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Tim.
Councillors, any other questions for Mr Clark? Thank you very much for coming in and giving your deputation. We have 15.3, Councillor Bowman, Bushfire Risk Management on City of Swan land on page 631. Have in support of the motion Ms Christine Clark. Is Christine here tonight? No? Okay. We're going to move on to 16.3, and that's the sale of lot 9501 Morrison Road, Midland, and that's a confidential agenda item. And so I am going to ask to go behind closed doors.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask if we can deal with this later on so we can ask all the other questions first. I expect there's probably a number of people in the gallery who would love to listen to the questions that some of us around this table are going to ask staff, and then we can go to that confidential item there.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Just one moment.
So you can, as the deputation, you could resolve under 74.56B to take all questions and come back to this matter.
Okay.
I'll move that way, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Oh, just one moment. Councillor Bowman, I'll resolve that we will move to questions under 7.46B and then come back to the confidential item. So I'll ask councillors, are there any questions for staff? Councillor Bowman.
Madam Mayor, since Tim's still here, can staff provide the following? So at the recycling centre, I can't take an 8x6 trailer, but am I correct that I can take a ute and an 8x5 trailer, both full?
Thank you, Mr McPherson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would depend on what the material is in that trailer and that ute and whether that's acceptable at the facility. In theory, there is fees and charges to allow for disposal from a ute and from a trailer itself, depending on the size and depending on the axle structure as well, which is another factor.
So if we say I eventually tied it up around the place that my wife's been nagging me about, got all the clippings, took them there in the ute and an 8x5 trailer, that would be permitted. And I'm a ratepayer of the Shire.
Through you, Madam Chair, all things being equal, yes, that would be permitted.
But if I took my station wagon and my 8x6 trailer, that wouldn't be allowed. Am I correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, that would not be permitted based on the current fee and charge structure.
So obviously we heard from Tim. He's had the trailer for 10 years. He's been going there for a while. Why the change? Are we just getting stricter, or has there been issues, or are we noticing there's a lot of people that can't even back a 6x4 trailer, and so therefore we've made the assumption if you've got an 8x6 trailer, that may cause more problems?
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding was a combination of factors, particularly around safety incidents and near misses at that particular facility. Understanding is that the fee and charge is restricted to certain size trailers, so that was the easiest mechanism to implement to improve safety at the Bullsbrook site, which is a concern for staff and our duty of care for the community.
And would, from observations, those who've had a trailer for 10 years, live in Bullsbrook or the rural area, they know how to back. They go the opposite way to the other way and all that. But someone like me who hires one from Bunnings wouldn't even have a clue how to back. It's probably more dangerous. And so therefore the size is not the issue, it's the ability of the driver, and perhaps we should be going through drive-through rubbish tips as opposed to backing up, which they're now doing in caravan parks.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I suppose it's eternally the case that it is the minority that impedes it for the majority of people who are doing the right thing.
No further questions, Mr. Councillor Bowman? Okay, councillors, are there any further questions in regard, to staff? On the agenda. Yes, on the agenda. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I've got a question relating to the annual meeting of electors and Mr. Mark Richards' motion. But before I ask the question, I just want to ask, this diagram that we were given at the last meeting, Mr. CEO, at the workshop, is this public? Can I discuss this in this meeting?
Thank you. Through the Chair, Councillor Johnson, all matters raised at workshops are confidential. They go into the public domain when such time they're published. So where it contains information pertaining to licence or other things, that no.
Okay. Councillors, any further questions for staff? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The master plan. So was the master plan initiated by council, a council resolution, or was the master plan produced by staff?
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Howlett. As you know, the master plan was initiated as CEO KPI, endorsed by council in order to facilitate the requirement for adequate accommodation for all the city's needs for the future. It was prepared and briefed on a number of occasions through 2024 when Mr. Coaten was here, and then more comprehensively in 2025. The master plan itself was prepared by an independent agency guiding the best use of the site to maximise its utility so that it could continue to serve the community for at least another 50 years. Noting some of the other comments coming through tonight, it will provide for that growth, and when you do need a facility as a satellite facility in the north in probably 10 or 20 years' time, then there would be sufficient land as identified in the master plan in Bullsbrook to be able to provide facility services to northeast, northwest Ellenbrook and the Bullsbrook community.
Further question to that. Is it considered best practice to put a master plan out for public consultation, considering this is a 100% asset, City of Swan asset?
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Through the chair, it's not necessary from the perspective that what you have is an existing use. It's been there since 1970. You're looking at the best way to redevelop that site, and that's why through the master planning exercise we considered alternate uses for the site, such as mentioned tonight, that you couldn't actually redevelop for a residential accommodation. You'd actually make, because of the contamination on the site, you wouldn't be able to make any money out of it, so you'd be left with this enormous debt. So it is about council making the best use of its decision making for the investment to serve the community. The master planning exercise which we've taken council on over now last 2 years has been designed to inform you as decision makers so that you'd make prudent use of the city's funds.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I ask a question, please?
Councillor Congerton.
It's in relation to the document that Councillor Johnson just raised in front of the CEO in our live stream. Will that section of the live stream be deleted so no one can capture that document, blow it up and then use it for whatever purposes?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you. Through the chair, I appreciate some concern. I don't think any of the level of detail was genuinely visible, certainly not on the scale, but as council, just the general principle as we advised at the start of each of the workshops and other matters that the materials discussed are confidential until such time as they enter the public domain. So we can't come back and alter the audio visual record. That's a record of this particular meeting, but I think for the exercise, if we could just be careful about what you do, put it, hold up, display, etc., so that it can't be seen.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'll refer to them as Marks Parks in Bellevue. We all know what we're referring to. What would be the minimum amount of water need to be allocated to one of those, just one of those parks, to give it a bit of green?
Mr. McPherson.
Through you, Madam Chair, without having the exact dimensions in front of me or to what regime, it would be very, very difficult for me to answer. I would just defer back to the government's allocation, which is, I think, is about 6,600 kilolitres per hectare or thereabouts.
And so then my follow-up question, which obviously probably have to get taken on notice, is how much water do we currently use on all our parks in the Midland Guildford ward? So then I can work out how much we potentially need to reduce of all our parks in the Midland Guildford ward to nick a bit of water from those to do this one. So if we could potentially get that out to us.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've already started investigating some aspects of bore allocation and destination points for those particular bores. They're not done in ward arrangements due to the aquifer locations. However, part of a body of work later this year will be re-accreditation in terms of our gold certification and our water efficiency plan. We will be looking at the correct allocation of those bores to the parks throughout the city for an equitable approach.
Thank you.
Sorry, does that mean we potentially can nick a little bit of the water from the other parks to put a little bit onto Marks Park in Bellevue?
Mr. McPherson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, not necessarily nick, but redistribute potentially.
Same things, yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Councillors, are there any further questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. Electors' motions, whatever the item is. Motion number 14 on page 94, Jeff Hunt, Guildford. It says here that the city has reviewed and confirmed that the pruning occurred in accordance with the AS 4373 standards. Did staff attend and view those prunings, or how was the review undertaken?
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, staff attended after we became aware of the issue, inspected it and confirmed against the standards.
Thank you. Further question. This relates to motion 20 on page 98. there's a list of parks which are fenced off for dogs, which implies that they are all fenced dog areas, dog parks. Is that the totality of parks that are fenced off for dogs within the City of Swan?
Thank you, Mr McPherson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that is the all of them we have on our register which are fenced for the purposes of dog parks.
Further question?
Not just yet, I don't think.
Okay, councillors. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I've got 3 questions about the depot master plan. So, has any public consultation been done, and is any public consultation planned?
Mr CEO.
Thank you. As mentioned, the consultation has all been with council members, ultimately you're the decision makers. What we did is ensure before the item came back that we alerted the 2 abutting residents, that's who had already objected to the matter to the fabrication workshop, of the issues that would affect the future of the site, including the master plan. Noting, if I could tonight, that whilst mention was made of main roads, etc., they are all future provisions that need to be allowed for a facility that's going to be there and built for the next 50 years.
Thanks. And the next question is, if the site is contaminated, how does that impact our staff?
Thank you.
Through the chair, it doesn't stop us use of any contaminated site where they're adequately capped. So where you have most of that area covered by car park and we have drainage through it, so it has no direct impact, no different to areas where we put contamination under roads, as happens across a number of areas already developed over Swan.
And just a third question on this one. How will the depot operate while it's being rebuilt?
Through the chair, as identified in the master plan, there's a staging approach to it, which allows for the demolition of parts of the facilities, the reconstruction of other parts, then subsequent demolition of those parts, so that as a series of years, the whole of the city's operations can continue. The only piece that we just want to resolve once we've got the sequencing sorted out through the first that are dominoes to fall, if we wish, to call it the fabrication workshop, is that we just need to make adequate provision for crib facilities, and that's something that will be done as part of the next stage.
Thank you. Next question is 14.3.1, which is the new workshop building. Has there been an independent review of the planning decision?
Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, and that was distributed to all council members. I think, Mr Russell, you did that earlier this week, and it went to all council members. And we... sorry, Mr Russell, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Russell.
Sorry, yes, that was distributed under cover of a memorandum to councillors last week. I think it was Friday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was just checking it wasn't confidential. So I guess the question is, I couldn't see it in the agenda. Is it in the agenda 14.3.1?
Mr CEO.
Thank you. Through the chair. No, you have the existing item represented, which is what's necessary under the Procedure to Local Government Act. What council asked for was some consideration, which we undertook. We deal administratively, and we sent that to you to reassure you that an independent party assessing the application reached the same conclusions that staff did, that the application was compliant.
Yeah, just a question, would it not be reasonable to make that public so that the local community who are impacted and objecting to this could assure themselves that the decision was independent?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Local community are not the decision makers here. Council are decision makers. That's why the document is circulated to you prior to making a decision. You could, as a result of an amendment or a proposal, that if you adopt the item to distribute the independent assessment or to make public the independent assessment. However, as I said, the assessors of this are not the community, the assessors are yourself. The assessment done by the independent planner was looked at purely on planning purposes. That issue's been raised tonight in other aspects of deputations, and it reached the same, as I said, the same position the staff had.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Bowman.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Final question, 14.1.4, and councillors, I've asked a similar question. It's regarding, in the WOLGA request, there's 8 questions, albeit on 2 subject matters. Is there a reason why we're not providing to WOLGA a council-agreed response on the 6 other remaining questions?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, and as I've already explained to Councillor Bowman, there are only 2 matters for consideration by the government, and that relates to the type of voting and the frequency of elections. The other 8 comments, simply, or the other 6 comments, 2 of them say, are there any comments? And we're not going to provide a question say, well, do you have any comments? 2 others asked, is, do you have a reason for reaching your decision? And you don't want to make a comment from why you've got a reasoned decision. That would be for council to give as part of its reasoned decision. So there are only 2 issues that are looked at for statutory reform. Is the type of voting going to change from voluntary to compulsory? And secondly, is the frequency of the elections going to change from biennial to 4 yearly with a full spill of positions?
Okay.
So,
Right.
Madam Mayor, follow up part B to that question, since I'm not asking any more questions. Does local government support a half spill elections every 2 years or a full spill? The CEO in his recommendation said full spill. The next follow-up question is, what are the key considerations informing this view? So what are the key considerations informing this view if I can't see it as an actual response, draft response to WOLGA?
Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thank you. And as identified in the item itself and under the details, the rationale fits in two considerations, particularly cost. So you have a substantive cost for the city to have a biennial election. So as opposed to the 4 yearly election, as I've said, Councillor Bowman, you would say if it's currently costing us, estimated next one at around 750,000 and the one after that at roughly $1 million. People might say, how can you get that escalation? But just the other day, the government said, firstly, it's going to increase the price of stamps again, and then now it's saying it might cease letter distribution. So we know that the cost of Australia Post, which is a big component of the election, is going to go up. Second piece relates to disruption to council, the process of inducting and training council. If we only have to do that once every 4 years, you have a cohesive position from the time you're elected. We do all of the training once. Council then doesn't have to be impacted by this effect every 2 years, try and bring people up to the speed to understand a budget cycle, etc., because they've understood it now for the last 4 years. So there's good rationale for that, as contained in the agenda papers.
And part C to that question, is that the CEO assuming that council will continue with a postal and not go back to a voting in person election?
Through the chair, it assumes that the status quo will remain, and said were council to go to an in-person, then it would deal with a substantively fewer number of persons attending. However, if the state government mandate it's compulsory, then it might be in person, in which case we go back to a different cost structure. All we can point to is if you want to achieve the current level of participation, which is around 30% of voters turning out to vote, you need to do it on a voluntary basis with a postal ballot. If you do it to an in-person, as we saw recently in the by-election 2 years ago, we had 1.5% roughly from memory of the population vote.
Okay. Councillor Congleton, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. On the same 14.1.4, page 195, we talk about electronic voting. And the point is that there may be other providers for electronic voting, particularly considering how the WAEC aren't really good at getting things right. They may be commercial operators. And then we go down to the next section that is about whether or not we would support third parties. So I have a problem with how those two matters flow. Does the CEO have any particular view as to why we wouldn't accept third parties?
Thank you.
through the chair, ultimately the question is not about whether you have a different party conducting the elections. It's about the frequency. The two questions around the frequency. Under statute at the moment, only the WAC can conduct your election, where we have, say, two bodies nationally, the AEC, Australian Electoral Commission, and a WAC who have got the capacity. We're not allowed to have the AEC provide us a quote for delivery of service, nor are we allowed to have private entities do that. Now, they are in the East Coast in some jurisdictions, but not in Western Australia.
Thank you. I do have another question on 15.1, if that's okay. So, in regard to the staff's recommendation to and part of the revocation, accepted where the officers have given the appropriate recommendation, I would be adding or moving to add another paragraph about training of staff and ensuring proper understanding. So just giving notice, I'll be doing that.
Thank you. Councillor Howlett, did you have a question?
I did, thank you. Two questions. One is on 14.3.1, which is the workshop, proposed new workshop building. Question is, it's been mentioned that if the workshop is relocated, there will be a parking deficiency. So can staff confirm then that if the workshop remains in the proposed location, that will allow for full parking allocation with no deficiency?
Thank you. Mr. McPherson.
So through the chair, I'll make an initial comment, and Mr. McPherson will, so the location that the fabrication workshop, noting this is a fabrication and not the type of workshop referred to as a vehicle maintenance workshop. Fabrication workshop has been selected based on the site that gives us maximum utility and allows for maximum use of the site. It allows for then the provision of all the growth that we expect over the next 10 years. Mr. McPherson might have some other comments on the other aspect of your question.
Through yourself, Madam Mayor, in addition to the CEO's comments, I suppose there is a couple of mitigating location and fundamental infrastructure on site which guide the rest of the parking layout there. That is the existing workshop for the plant and equipment and the existing stores area. The circulating pattern only gives a limited amount of opportunity to put a new workshop facility. So those mitigating factors, as well as the access requirements, make that the optimum location for the workshop.
Okay.
So to be clear, there will be a parking deficiency wherever we locate this workshop.
Through you, Madam Mayor, at some point in time we will have a shortfall of parking. However, that will be alleviated once we redistribute operations to a northern satellite yard at some point in future. There may be temporary accommodation needed for certain vehicles such as waste fleet or heavy plant and equipment. However, that will be worked through for an interim period and that will be a transitional arrangement.
Okay.
I'll just add, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned, those deficiencies won't be for more than a decade based on the current growth profile of the city. If I could make one other observation through the chair, since we're dealing with this, I think there's some opportunity to, and picking up the concerns raised by two residents, to deal with further acoustic treatment to manage what they have raised as concerns, and to engage directly with them as part of the provision of fabrication workshop, installing acoustic treatment along the fence line, satisfactory standard that meets both parties' needs.
Thank you, Councillor Howlett.
So effectively, we could retain the mature trees, relocate the workshop to a different section, have a parking deficiency, which we would have anyway, and probably satisfy everybody if we were to continue at this proposed site.
Mr. CEO.
So through the chair, you don't end up with the optimal outcome. You would deny the opportunity for the workshop to be able to, or the depot site to be able to maximise its utility for the intended future. and it would not really facilitate the outcome that's being achieved by a master plan exercise. So the master plan looks at how you can place each of the components of the facility so that you maximise the utility of the site and you minimise the amount of ratepayers' funds needed to support the city's operations.
Okay.
And a further question, please, on another item. This is my last question, I think, before we go behind closed doors for more questions. And that is on the annual electors meeting, motion number 1, which is the dog park. It would appear that the response lacks lustre as it pays mention really only to a previous petition, therefore nothing more to be noted. I plan to withdraw this item, just giving you forewarning, so that we can explore the multitude of suggestions in the motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hallett. Councillors ask for the last questions. Any last questions for staff? Okay. I'll ask for a mover to go behind closed doors, and that is Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Miles. Is anyone against? No. Thank you to those people watching in the gallery. Thank you for those watching online. We're just going to go behind closed doors now for item 16.3, and we should return shortly. please. Was there anyone against? Better not be. All right. Is it? To those watching at home online, we've just come out from behind closed doors for our confidential item, which is 16.3, which is the sale of lot 9501 Morrison Road, Midland, and we now declare the meeting closed at 8:05. Thank you.